The day of German unity has passed, and I decided to recreate the entire history of Germany in 14 small Lego dioramas, each one showing one of 13 key events that, in my opinion, shaped the country. Yeah, I know, I didn't quite make it in time for October 3rd. I'm not a historian, so I relied on my history book, my own perspective, and the materials and resources I had available. My Lego mocks are conceptual art. They won't always be 100% historically accurate, sometimes I'm missing certain pieces or minifigures, and of course the small 16x16 baseplate doesn't leave much space for detail. So what is the history of Germany? It took me quite a while to decide which events I wanted to show. To me, German history is a chain of processes that made today's Germans who they are. This old yet young nation has seen everything. Times without a state, episodes of democracy, and the mark of one of the darkest dictatorships the world has ever known. I see history not as a political tool, but as a shared human experience. That's why I won't avoid the sharp corners. I'll show everything as it was. Both the bright sides and the dark ones. Let's dive into the first topic. I decided to start from afar and chose the Stone Age as the first episode, specifically the late Paleolithic. Around 40,000 years ago, early humans arrived in what we now call Germany. They hunted, gathered, and made stone tools and weapons. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any photos from this period of German history, so I had to rely on cave paintings instead. I've prepared this 16x16 base plate for a series of dioramas I'm going to build, but first we need to pick a minifigure that fits the Stone Age period of German history. Bruh. Meet Neanderthal Klaus, big fan of grilling, proud cave resident and probably the inventor of the first bratwurst. Anyways, I actually have a rough plan for the mock. I'll build a cliff with a cave in the background of the display and a grill platz in the foreground. So let's start building.
Let's go.
Most of the rock work is already done. I've prepared a grill in advance, now I'll start building the grilling area. I've finished building the front part as you can see, so let's continue with the interior. So this is the result I ended up with, and honestly I'm pretty happy with it. It's a small, compact and solid mock. By the way, I've never used this many dark grey parts before. The first chapter of German history is behind us, so let's move on to the next one. Moving forward a few millennia, we come to the Battle of the Teutoburg forest. In 9 AD, Germanic tribes led by Arminius ambushed 3 Roman legions, stopping Rome's expansion into Germania. This decisive victory became a legendary symbol of resistance and shaped the region's history for centuries to come. Based on the photos I found online, I've already chosen 2 Roman and 2 Germanic warriors to use in the diorama. I am really lucky to have these 2 Romans on hand. I actually won them in a mock contest last year. Finally, they are getting some use. And I love these 2 fierce-looking Germanic minifigures just as much. Those furious faces look perfect. If you are curious, for these 2 guys I used Aloy's torso from Horizon Forbidden West and a random Star Wars torso. Same base plate, same location, but a new page in German history. Let's get building. This is one of the 2 fir trees I've built. I'll be adding them to the mock. Here is how it turned out in the end. On the mock you can see 2 Roman soldiers who got separated from their column somewhere in the Teutoburg forest, and 2 Germanic warriors ambushing them. There are also lots of puddles on the diorama, since the battle took place in the rain. From the cold and rainy forests of northern Germany, we move to the hot deserts of the Middle East, where the next important events in the German history took place. Now let's jump to the Middle Ages, to the Crusades, focusing on the battle for Acre. In 1191, German and other European forces fought to capture this key city in the Holy Land. This battle shows how German knights were involved in broader European conflicts far from home. The Crusades were crucial for Germany and Europe because they changed politics and boosted trade across the continent. They also connected different cultures, shaping Europe's development for centuries. On the diorama, I want to depict a ruined city wall of Acre and place a German crusader resting beside it after the battle. The main colors I'm going to use are tan and nougat. Now it's time to build. I also spontaneously decided to add this fallen local civilian lying beneath the ruins of his home. Beneath the ruins lie not just stones, but the silence of vanished lives, a reminder that all glory, all safety, all permanence is an illusion. So this is what we have in the end, a mock with a Middle Eastern vibe. It's the one I like the most so far, since I used my favorite Lego colors here. And now you can take a look at the mock from all angles. And as you can see, it doesn't look as attractive from the back. This build turned out a bit gloomy, so let's switch to the next period of German history. And the next period of German history is no brighter. The 30 Years' War was one of its darkest chapters. In 1631, Magdeburg was besieged and almost completely destroyed, killing tens of thousands and giving rise to the German term Magdeburgisierung, for total wartime destruction. During the 30 Years' War, up to 80% of the population in some regions died from famine, disease and fighting. I don't have many Lego minifigures or accessories that fit the medieval to early modern theme, but I still managed to put together these characters which I'll be using in the diorama. Historical accuracy isn't really the focus here. Still, I tried to make them look as authentic as possible with what I had. On the right you can see the militia defending the city. They're equipped with outdated weapons and have little to no armor. On the left are sceneries of the Catholic League storming the city. They are armed with muskets and halberds, and some wear uniforms. One of them even has this cowboy hat which doesn't really fit the scene, but oh well. It was supposed to be a reference to that famous musketeer hat. So, what will the diorama look like? In this corner I'm planning to build a burning half-timbered house with a dirt road running beside it. Let the building begin. I'll also add this atmospheric door, which you might have already seen in one of my previous dioramas. On the mock you can see a crowded street in Magdeburg where local residents are trying to resist the stormtroopers who have broken into the city. Some civilians have already been killed, part of a building wall was destroyed by a cannonball and the structure caught fire. The street is in complete chaos and disorder. I'm happy with the result. There is something special about these tiny 16x16 dioramas. I also had fun building the interior even though the detailing could be better. Let's move on to the next important event in German history. Now we move to the Formats period and the Hambach Festival. Until then, the German people had never been united, but were divided into numerous duchies and states. In 1830s, across Europe the national movements were growing, and Germany was no exception. In 1832, thousands of Germans, and not only Germans, gathered at the Hambach Festival demanding freedom, civil rights and national unity. The festival became an iconic symbol of Germany's growing democratic and liberal movement, which reached its peak in 1848 with the Paulskirche Parliament during the March Revolution. Just take a look at how many minifigures I'm planning to use in this diorama. All of them represent protesters gathered near Hambach Castle. This guy is carrying a German flag and that one a Polish one. I won't focus on the minifigures for too long and will briefly talk about the plans for the upcoming model. In the foreground I'm going to build a sloped road leading up to the castle, with a crowd of people walking up. In the background I'll place vineyards and other vegetation. Less talk, more action. Let the building begin. The build is finished and it turned out exactly the way I envisioned it. The sloped road was especially fun to design. But now let's move 40 years ahead in time and take a look at the next key chapter in German history. Only 40 years has passed since the Hambach Festival and there was no trace left of the democratic aspirations. During the Franco-Prussian War, when the French Emperor had already been captured and Paris was under siege, Germany was unified under Prussia's leadership. In 1871, in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, Kaiser Wilhelm II was proclaimed German Emperor. This moment marked the birth of the German Empire and changed the balance of power in Europe, turning Germany into a major continental force. For this mock I'll really have to put some effort into choosing the right minifigures. I already have these two Prussian soldiers, but I'll need to customize the rest. Since I don't have enough bold, old-looking heads like in the painting, I'll have to use these odd and not so fitting heads for Bismarck and Wilhelm and paint the torsos. The minifigure set is ready, so it's time to start building. The Hall of Mirrors in the Palace of Versailles, serious men in uniform and a turning point in German history. This was one of my fastest builds so far. but it stands out because I had to recreate an interior scene this time. I also used some golden pieces that had been sitting unused in a back drawer until now. The minifigures on the diorama do look a bit weird, I know, but don't judge too harshly. Now let's move on to event number 7 in German history. And the 7th topic I want to show in a diorama is World War I. In 1914, Germany went to war that quickly spread across Europe. Imperialist ambitions were running high. Many rulers were even relatives, each trying to redraw the map of the world. The war caused huge social, political and economic changes, leading to the fall of the monarchy in Germany and paving the way for the Weimar Republic. Finally, we've reached one of my favorite topics, World War I. In my collection I have these 2 German soldiers with Brickmania torso stickers, as well as 2 French soldiers wearing the uniforms used in the early stages of the war. In the foreground of the diorama I plan to build a French trench being attacked by the Germans. Let's get bricking! Et voila! Another mock is complete. This one shows a scene from the fighting in the fall of 1914, when the war shifted from fast-moving battles to trench warfare, and the German advance came to a halt near the gates of Paris. If you look closely, you'll notice I used my own custom technique for building the trench walls. I also added this tree, which I designed myself. But let's sign the armistice at Compiègne and move on to the next era in German history. The treaty signed in Versailles burdened the post-war German Republic. Social divisions led to numerous armed clashes in the following years. Yet, there was also economic growth. People who had survived the war wanted to enjoy their life and focus on entertainment. Next, in the early Weimar Republic, this contrast became clear. While cultural life flourished in the cities, political instability and uprisings like the Spartacist revolt of 1919 showed how fragile the young democracy still was. We are replacing the flag of the German Empire with that of the Weimar Republic. To represent this complex period in German history, I decided to build 2 dioramas which will highlight the deep contrasts of life in the Weimar Republic. The first scene will depict a barricaded street with demonstrators waving imperial and red flags and Freikorps soldiers maintaining order. Unfortunately, I can't use my A7V tank in this diorama as it would take up the entire base plate and block everything else. The second mock will be a cabaret interior where people are dancing and enjoying the nightlife. Here you can see the minifigures I've selected for both scenes. I'm off to start building, and I think I'll begin with the darker side of Weimar democracy. Both dioramas are ready. On the right you can see a Berlin cafe where jazz is playing, young people are dancing and drinking alcohol. The left mock depicts a demonstration of supporters of radical parties on a street in Berlin. One of the protesters is even holding a gun behind his back. Both scenes were built fairly quickly, but I like them. On this one I used my own technique for creating paving slabs. I also had fun building the barricade. And this smoke especially pleases my eye with its color combination. A brief period of German democracy passes and we turn to one of the darkest pages in German history. Now we move to a grim chapter in German history. After Hitler came to power in 1933, the opposition was suppressed and Germany began rapid militarization. The Nuremberg laws were introduced, banning marriages between Germans and members of other races. The persecution of Jewish citizens was encouraged by the state, eventually culminating in Kristallnacht. This wave of violence marked a turning point and foreshadowed the horrors of the Holocaust. Here are 3 SS minifigures that I decided to use for the diorama. They represent soldiers who carried out Hitler's criminal orders. I wanna make it clear that I strongly condemn the ideology and crimes of the Third Reich. This video is made for educational purposes only. On the baseplate itself, I'm planning to depict a destroyed Jewish shop in one of the German cities. So let's start building! Here is the result I ended up with. The diorama depicts a shop on the morning of November 10, 1938, with a broken window and the word Jude written on the door. SS men are loading looted furniture onto a black truck. One of them is about to set the shop on fire. I wish I could say that the sad episodes end here, but no. Kristallnacht was only the beginning of the Third Reich's criminal, inhumane acts. Topic number 10 brings us to the end of World War II. The lessons of the First World War had been learned. This time Germany was completely occupied by the Allies. For Germany, the end of the war brought not only liberation, but also deep sorrow. Cities lay in ruins, countless civilians had died in bombings, and many men were either dead or held in captivity. The country was divided into 4 occupation zones, setting the stage for its post-war reconstruction and the later split into East and West Germany. Here is the lineup of minifigures for my upcoming mock. 2 Americans, 2 Germans and a Trümmerfrau. That's what people call the women who took part in the reconstruction work in Germany after 1945. Now in this build, my main goal, as I already said, is to show a different side of the end of World War II. The whole scene will be cut diagonally by the wall of a destroyed house. In the front, on the street, 2 Americans will be capturing 2 German soldiers. And in the back, behind the ruined wall, a woman will be digging through the rubble. Let's get started! I'm glad to present you the result. While working on the diorama, I broke my personal record for bumping into the camera. Hope it didn't distract you too much. The war is over. 2 Americans have captured a German officer and a regular soldier. The city lies in ruins. In the background, a Trümmerfrau is digging through the remains of her home, trying to find something valuable. This mock has become my favorite out of the whole series I've made. The most exciting part was building this white wall and detailing its texture.
I wouldn't even be ashamed to post this little scene on Instagram. And now let's dive into the reality of post-war Germany.
Wow, what's this that just arrived right on time for my next episode? That's right, a package from United Bricks, the best custom LEGO historical minifigure company I've ever seen. Let's crack it open together and see what's inside. Thanks to United Bricks sponsorship program, they kindly sent me the 6 minifigures, this awesome Lego head, 3 cool stickers and a whole nest for my Lego birds. Just joking, United Bricks simply want to make sure the items get to you safe and sound. Have you ever seen a Lego minifigure of a NVA soldier? United Bricks is probably the only company that has ever touched this topic. Just look at this historically accurate fighter. What really stands out is the unique M56 helmet, custom cast exclusively for this minifigure, only at United Bricks. From modern troops from around the world to medieval knights, United Bricks has it all. Be sure to check out their website, you are bound to find something cool there. And don't forget to use my discount code on the screen to get 10% off your order. Now back to our build. What happened after World War II? You would think Germany would finally get a break from wars, but no. Tensions between the Western and Eastern blocs kept rising, and divided Germany found itself right at the center of it. The communist system showed its flaws, and people were deeply dissatisfied with life under it. The Soviet side repeatedly staged provocations and even blocked supplies to West Berlin. Eventually, to stop the mass exodus, the GDR government under Walter Ulbricht built the Berlin Wall, soon nicknamed the Wall of Shame. The wall became the ultimate symbol of the Cold War, dividing families, communities, and an entire nation for decades. In my upcoming build, I'm only using 2 minifigures, this NVA soldier from United Bricks which I talked about in more detail earlier, and this boy with the spray can. The baseplate will be split right down the middle. And the concept is simple, on one side stands the soldier and on the other the boy is spraying graffiti on the wall. I want to remind you that I already built the Berlin Wall back in 2019, but it definitely needs a remake, so let's start building. Oops, I think I forgot something. The wall has risen, and the German people stand divided. On one side, a boy sprays the letters KZ onto the concrete, a haunting reminder of the concentration camps. On the other, a GDR border guard stands watch, prepared to crush any attempt at escape to the west. Barbed wire stretches across the top of the Berlin Wall, built here from Lego handcuff pieces. In the western zone, there are flower beds and people strolling freely, unafraid to come close. But to the east lies nothing but a desolate kill zone. This is the diorama I created, and it turned out to be the fastest build so far. Piece by piece, we are moving closer to the modern age. Onwards! Finally, we reach one of the most iconic events in recent German history, the fall of the Berlin Wall. Due to internal social crisis and costly interventions in other countries that drained its economy, the Soviet Union was losing influence on its peripheries, where independence movements were growing stronger. In the end, the German people threw off the communist burden and, as a result of the peaceful revolution, achieved reunification. In 1989, the wall came down, paving the way for a united Germany and marking not only the end of the Cold War, but also the beginning of a new era for the nation. For this important event in German history, I picked a total of 9 minifigures representing completely different social groups. I also took into account the cultural features of the late 80s and early 90s. That's why I included this punk. For this episode, I plan to slightly remodel the previous mock. I will adjust the road layout to fit more minifigures and partially break down the wall. So let's get breaking! The wall has fallen. The German people were reunited after 45 years of separation. Joyful crowds climbed onto the wall, and even a young East German soldier couldn't hold back a smile. Some people started tearing down the wall of shame with makeshift tools. This was the birth of the Germany we know today. That's the build I ended up with, my friends. We've officially entered modern times. There is only one more diorama left ahead. Even decades after World War II, Germans carried guilt over the war and the Holocaust, seen in moments like Willy Brandt's Kniefall in 1970 and Friedrich Merz's 2025 speech at a Munich synagogue where he was moved to tears. For years, patriotism was frowned upon, and showing the German flag at international matches was taboo. But during the 2006 World Cup, that changed. Flags appeared everywhere, the nation celebrated together, and being German became something to feel proud of again. This Sommermärchen became a symbol of Germany's new national identity. 9 minifigures have been chosen by me for this scene. These are 8 fans with German flags and a police officer. The diorama will feature a fragment of a football field and a spectator stand filled with people. Let's start building. The stands are loud and full of energy. People are waving German flags, shouting and cheering for the national team. Some are having drinks, while a police officer keeps order. In my opinion, this mock perfectly wraps up our diorama series on a positive note. Our history lesson is over! Write in the comments which diorama you like the most. Also let me know if you want me to make this a series and cover the history of other countries. Share this video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget my discount code for United Bricks. You are free students.